April 14th Planning Board meeting. August.
Running the summer over.
Yes, I wish. On the agenda tonight, we have the first item that has been adjourned. So if anybody's here for item number 1, Michael Broxmeyer, you could check with the staff and planning to see when that will be heard again. Won't be tonight. Before we start, we're going to stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you for all attending. We have 2 types of meetings in our meetings. The first type is a public hearing, which we will take public testimony if anybody wants to speak on the item. We do have cards to be filled out at the table. If you fill them out, they'll submit them to us and we'll call you up. If you do come up to speak, we ask that you keep your remarks to 3 minutes. We also ask our applicants to keep their presentations to 30 minutes. So with that being said, item number 2 tonight, John Staluppi, SP 2023-093, south side of Sunrise Highway, 187.66 feet east of 3rd Avenue in Bay Shore. Applicant requests a landscaping relaxation in connection with the additions to an existing car dealership. If the applicant would give you a name.
Yes, good
Address
evening,
for the
Mr.
record.
Chairman. On behalf of the applicant, my name is Daniel Baker, Greenberg Traurig LLC, PLLC, 900 Stewart Avenue, Garden City, New York. Good evening again. I am here on behalf of the applicant, 1356 Sunrise Highway LLC. Subject property is located on the South Service Road of Sunrise Highway and is currently operating as a car dealership. The owner is proposing to renovate the existing dated building on the subject property in order to house a new Cadillac sales and service facility. I am joined tonight by representatives of both the applicant and North Coast Civil, who prepared the plans. That's Doug Castellano. I'll ask him to step up after me. I'm also here with John Gentili, who is general counsel for the applicant. As you can see from the proposed plans that have been submitted, the footprint of the building will only be minimally changed. In fact, after the removal of existing overhangs, the overall square footage for the building will be slightly reduced, while the showroom for the facility, which is presently an octagonal shape, will be squared off. The remainder of the renovation will include interior elements such as new lighting, flooring, and new interior wall partitions. Tonight, we are before the board seeking relaxations for the overall and front yard landscaping requirements. As far as overall landscaping, the proposal provides for 11.66% or 12,995.9 square feet instead of the required 20%, which would be 22,281.6 square feet. For front yard landscaping, the proposal provides for 30.58% or 6,813.8 square feet instead of the required 50%, which would be 11,140.8 square feet. While these relaxations may seem numerically significant, the relief itself is much less substantial when compared to the 1988 approved site plan for the subject property. In 1988, the overall landscaping relaxation of 13.15% was approved, with 50% of that to be located in the front yard. Under the current proposal, overall landscaping provided is 1,662.4 square feet less than what was previously approved, and the front yard landscaping is 183.5 square feet less than what was previously approved. Regardless of the landscaping relaxations requested, the proposed landscaping plan is an improvement over what exists at the site today and will mitigate any potential adverse impacts on adjacent properties. Again, I'm here with Doug Castellano from North Coast. I'd like him to just take you through the plan a little bit, but again, I think the important fact before you is that what they're proposing is an improvement over what exists. It will put landscaping in that is not there now, including a new sales and service center that will be an improvement for not only for them, but for anybody going up and down Sunrise. So with that, if I could ask Mr. Castellano to step up.
Mr. Castellano, just give us your company's address for the record.
Good evening. For the record, Doug Castellano from North Coast Civil, 39 West Main Street, Oyster Bay, New York. So as Dan stated, Mr. Baker stated, the scope of the work is really just 4 small building additions. They're squaring off what is like an octagonal shape of the front half of the building, and then just interior renovations. So when we submitted to planning, we received a number of comments on areas of the property that required improvements. Some of it was deficient from the 1988 approved site plan. So I'll quickly kind of recap what some of those improvements are. I know you have the plans in front of you. So new asphalt repaving, new parking stall restriping, new code compliant dumpster enclosure that's in the rear half of the property. They asked us to fix a lot of the broken curbing, and some curbing was actually missing from the perimeter of the parking area, so we'll be fixing that. Bringing up the ADA bringing the handicap ramps to ADA compliance. We'll be fixing or repairing the 2 aprons along Sunrise Highway. Those will both go before the New York State DOT for their review because it's a state road, as you know. Zoning compliant lighting. So they asked us to bring all the lighting into compliance. There is a photometric plan that was prepared and submitted to planning. I believe it's satisfactory. So the lighting will now be compliant with zoning code, no spillage onto adjacent parcels. And lastly, we had to bring the drainage facilities up to code. I'm not sure. I think the previously approved plan had called for dry wells. We did soil borings, and we did find some high groundwater, so we switched to galleys. It'll be a new galley system that meets the 2-inch rainfall requirement from planning. Now jumping into landscaping, which is the main reason why we're here tonight. So as Mr. Baker stated, there is a site plan that was approved in 1988. He did a great job breaking down the coverage numbers in comparison to our plan. I'll just kind of walk you through some of the landscaping that we're providing. So the applicant really agreed to remove I'll start with the front buffer first, because there's really 2 buffers. There's one that's along Sunrise Highway and then one that's in the back, and both are really devoid of any landscaping currently. So in the front, we're actually removing that asphalt parking area right now where there's cars being stored. Originally, that old approved site plan called for sod and planting, so that's what we'll be proposing. It's a row of street-friendly deciduous trees, as well as behind that, a smaller row of smaller, more elegant evergreen shrubs. There's also a 2-foot berm that kind of sits in the middle of that, just to give a nice buffer from what will be the front of the building, where there is walkways to the roadway that you'll see when driving past. And then the areas around that will be just filled in with sod, which was again part of the 1988 approved plan, and fully sprinklered so that nothing dies. It's maintained, and it's intended to be maintained and kept well. And then in the rear of the site, so there's actually a 35-foot buffer between what's a residential zone and this site. So we're maintaining that 35-foot buffer, but there's a chain link fence that's back there now. Some of it's broken, dilapidated. We're replacing that chain link fence with what planning wanted as a chain link and stockade fence. You're really getting kind of like a double fence back there. That'll give a nice buffer in itself. And then in front of that, we're fully replanting that buffer. So it's going to have 2 rows of evergreen screening. Those will be installed at 6 feet. That kind of sits in like a zigzag shape. It kind of gives that like ambiance where you block off, any adjacent parcels. So there's really no bare gaps just from the evergreens itself. In front of that will be another row of deciduous trees. Those are 2.5-inch caliper or greater. And those trees will be installed, they'll be installed smaller, but they'll grow in, and essentially you'll have what's a nice landscaping buffer between the parking area and the neighbors behind. And then throughout the rest of the site, there is some other landscape areas which will be restored, really just sod or smaller plants, nothing too specific. And then there's one utility area that I think is on the westerly side of the property. There's, I think, a transformer that's there. The previous approved plan did call for evergreen screening around that, so we'll be adding those evergreens back. And that leaves us with the deficiency that kind of exists. The parking area is what it is. There's one area in the back of the site where what used to be parking area, we're now going to make that landscaping. So we're trying to give back and get as close to, what was the previously approved number. But unfortunately, it's not really possible unless you start eliminating parking stalls, and we're right at the parking minimum. So we don't want to give too much away, but I think what we're proposing is we'll add a nice a major improvement to what's there and a nice buffer. So if there's any questions on the site layout, the landscaping, engineering, was a full set that was submitted. I think you guys just have the landscaping plan, but if there's any other questions on that, I'd be happy to address them.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Is that it for your presentation?
That's it for my
now?
presentation, yes.
Okay.
And that's it for us, unless there are any questions from the board.
All right, well, we're going to open it up to the public. I don't have any cards. Is there anybody that came here that would like to speak on this tonight? Seeing no one, I'm going to go to Mr. Gonzalez for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a business 3-zone, 2.5-acre site, as stated by the applicant, currently improved with a car dealership CO'd in 1994. That build was per a 1988 approved site plan. The property was the subject of a change of zone from business 1 to business 3 in 1968 for auto sales, and then a further special permit for automobile sales and a modification of covenants in 87. Just a quick recap. The proposal before the board tonight is for minor additions to the northern section of the building, along with associated site improvements related to repaving, landscaping, and buffer installations. Front yard landscaping and rear yard buffer were requirements of the 1988 site plan approval, however, were not done. In addition, the proposal reduces the previously approved landscaping from a little over 13% to a little under 12%. The front yard is also deficient from the minimum requirement, where less than 31% is provided, where 50% is the requirement. The type of use and existing nature of the site renders it difficult to achieve minimum landscaping requirements. However, the applicant should review possible mitigation that could be offered to offset the decrease in that landscaping. The application will also be subject to a landscape mitigation fee at $6 a square foot for the reduction from the last approved site plan. Just for the board's edification, we did receive various complaints on the property regarding buffer removal, site lighting, noise, garbage pickup, etc. Those were prior complaints on the property, just that were on the property card, none of which are currently open, but I just wanted to put that on the record. However, it is recommended that a superior buffer treatment be planted along the rear of the property, which abuts the residential homes, in order to provide a taller plant screening than the standard buffer height. So at this time, staff would open for any questions that the board may have.
Lieutenant, let me ask you, the presentation on the buffer that was given tonight, is that along the back, is that sufficient for what you're talking about?
That's typically our standard buffer. Typically the evergreens are about 6 feet high. But, just given the history of the site and the complaints that have been on record, to avoid any future, issues with neighbors, it may be, beneficial to plant them a little bit higher than we normally do.
All right, because I see they did expand the buffer in the back on the plan compared to what we had originally.
Yeah, that was a 35-foot requirement from the town board. So it's a little more than the standard 25-foot buffer, but that is a requirement from that original change of zone.
Okay. Do you have any questions from the board? Mr. Ferrajari?
Yeah, I don't know who from the applicant would address this, but one of the things that concerned me is that you had a site plan that was approved back in 1988, and none of the landscaping requirements were ever complied with. Yet you've gotten your CO and you've been able to open, and that's not an issue. My concern is moving forward, should we approve this application tonight, what's the assurances that the landscaping that's on this site plan actually gets built?
Well, I think the easy answer is that, like any applicant, and this applicant was not the 1988 applicant, so I think that's a big difference there. They bought this property after the fact. They didn't know that they had to do that. The town in various capacities has visited the site over the years for different things. Nobody has said anything. I think if they had, then they would have remedied it that way. But that's not the answer. The answer is that, as any conditions to this approval, they are prepared to do it, and as quickly as they can, but not, in a fashion that they would do it right now before the construction work is done, because it just doesn't make sense to do that, have it all corrupted in some way by the construction or debris or whatever might happen, and then have to replace it. But certainly, as soon as they get through the process, which is expected to be a construction time period, assuming we have approval and they can move forward pretty quickly after this, They should be done by the end of the year, so that come March, as soon as planting can take place, they'll do everything then.
Well, this would be a site plan approval, and for you to get a CO to open for business, you would have to complete all of the improvements, not just the construction improvements, but also the site improvements as
Right.
well.
So maybe a consideration to get through that, because right now they're operational. I mean, they
Yeah.
do have the ability to operate and sell cars, and they want to be able to do that as quickly as they can, would be to post a bond or a letter of credit to protect against something like that, so that whatever the value of the plantings would be, they're certainly prepared to do that.
And planning would draft an appropriate covenant. Should the landscaping not go in, we have the right to pull that bond and do the work at that expense.
Yeah, just so we're all clear, so we're talking about potentially COing the additions before the landscaping is
No,
done?
the landscapings have to be in.
Okay,
The
yeah,
landscape has to be in.
yes.
Yeah. But as the attorney states, is that they're already open for business. They
Yep.
already have a CO. So we would have to take legal action to then shut them down to sort of make the process, the enforcement effort a little stronger, posting a bond in the appropriate amount that planning would have to determine, I think would be, in my opinion, would be acceptable.
And we find that to be a reasonable solution as well.
All right. Do we have any other board members that would like to speak? Mr. Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on the dumpster siting. Is that where it currently is located? And are there any other better options? It's back again, almost against the residential property. So I noticed there's some other spots that it possibly could be located at. You got pickup of garbage, you got, beeping noises and the like. You got for single-family residents along that property line. So I'm a little bit concerned about that as well.
I think we'd be open to other locations. I think there's no real dumpster enclosure right now. So what we proposed would be a built-in masonry dumpster that would definitely help alleviate some of the, the noise and things like that and contain it a little better. But if planning thinks there's a better location, we'd be open to moving it a little bit further. Just have to rearrange some of the parking, but I think it could work.
And one other addition to that, there has been a change, and I think it's effective tomorrow, in terms of the timings of pickup. Apparently, they've been doing it pretty early, and I think that was a complaint that was given to planning. Starting tomorrow, the pickups will start no earlier than 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, Tanner, I'd like to see if you could work with the applicant to see if you relocate the dumpster area as well to a better location, particularly given in light of the complaints from some of the local residents.
All right, Mr. Faragari.
And also looking at the site plan, in the rear of the building, there's far less parking spaces than what's shown on the aerial that we have here. And how you line up the parking back there is going to be your business. My only concern is I don't want to see cars parked out on Sunrise Highway. We have that happen at some dealerships once in a while, and that creates a traffic issue out on Sunrise Highway. So would you agree to a covenant that says, you would not park cars out on Sunrise Highway?
Yes, absolutely, that's fine.
Do we have any other questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Mr. Faragari.
Make a motion, but it's a little different than our standard motions because we don't have a set of covenants and restrictions before us. I think Mr. Moriarty brought up a good point. I brought up a couple of points. I'm willing to, at this point, close this public hearing and make a motion to approve this application subject to the applicant working out appropriate covenants and restrictions with our planning staff. And that includes the dumpster location, includes the bonding for the landscaping requirement, and includes the condition of no parking permitted on Sunrise Highway and any other conditions that planning staff deems appropriate. Is that something you're agreeable to?
Yes, that's agreeable.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Faragari as stated. Do I have a second? Inez, second. It's granted.
Thank you very much.
I had to give all that on the record.
Next application, Mamataz Parvin, PB 2024-012, northwest corner of Sal Court and Nicole Court, Bohemia. Applicant requests a modification, number 6, of the 1986 final resolution for the Captree Courts, Bohemia. File map is number 8169. This is to allow an accessory apartment within an existing family dwelling. We have an applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 231 Islip Avenue, Islip, New York. We are here today seeking a modification of condition number 6 of the 1986 final resolution for Captree Courts, Bohemia, to allow an accessory apartment within an existing family dwelling. The site is zoned AA-281 and was improved with a single-family dwelling in 1988. The site was further improved with a second-story deck in 1991 and a shed in 1993. No other improvements are listed on the current CO. The subject property is located within the filed map of Captree Courts, Bohemia, which were approved on May 8, 1986. That filed map adopted certain covenants and restrictions to be recorded on the properties located within this filed map. This particular covenant states that the property is zoned for a single-family use only, and accessory apartments are not permitted. The first issue we would like to address is that this restrictive covenant does not permit an accessory apartment. However, accessory apartments were adopted into the town code later after these were placed in 1992. Next is an accessory apartment as defined by the town code. Chapter 68-600 of the Islip Town Code states the legislative intent of an accessory apartment. A portion of that chapter is as follows. It is the purpose of this ordinance to provide an opportunity in locations where adverse impacts do not result and in a manner consistent with a comprehensive plan for the creation of small apartments within the existing structure of owner-occupied, single-family detached dwellings. It is the intent of the ordinance to meet the special housing needs of small households and to allow for the efficient use of the town's existing stock of single-family dwellings. The town code also defines accessory apartments. The way that it is defined in the town code is a dwelling unit which is subordinate to a permitted principal one-family residence use in terms of size, location, and appearance, and is located within the principal structure. If we were to look at this site and apply the town code for an accessory apartment, this site complies with the town's requirements. More specifically, it would meet the lot size, the lot width, the intended use of being an accessory to the primary dwelling, the owner occupying requirement, and the appearance of a single-family home. The apartment would be located in a portion of the lower level, and the entrance would be in the rear of the property. No modifications to the existing home as it was CO'd in 1988 are listed on our application. The rear entrance into the apartment was part of the original dwelling and how it was built. In addition to that, our property owner purchased this property in November of 2022. Unfortunately, when the property was purchased, the covenants and restrictions were not listed on any of the surveys, deeds, or CO, and they were unaware of this restriction to the property. And at this time, I'd like to take any questions that the board might have. Thank you.
Do we have anyone that would like to speak on this? Because I do have no forms filled out for it. Yes, sir. Please come up and give your name and address for the record, and just drop that off when you're done.
Hello, board. Thank you very much for having me. My name's William Moran. I live at 18 Nicole Court within the Captree Courts. It's one of the two courts within the residential area. My concern is stress to the emergency services in the area. Number two is also the location itself. The home originally had three rear entrances, which was a sliding door with the balcony, and then one for the garage in the back, and a sliding door on the basement. There was a third door put in after the residents moved in. By the way, I welcomed Alvin family into the neighborhood. That being said, the stress that I've seen that's been put on neighborhoods by adding apartments, as I always lived in the township of Islip, whether it was North Bayshore, Bayshore itself, in Brentwood, and out in Bohemia for the last 26 years. Adding this apartment will just open up Pandora's box for other new residents to come in and change the location where Captree Courts was. Single-family homes with maybe a mother and daughter, possibly. I don't know every home, what requirements they had. But once you start allowing apartments, sidewalks now get congested with parking. And then on top of that, I've seen it in North Bay Shore where people start parking on lawns because they have numerous people, numerous families living in homes. That's what I'm trying to protect our neighborhood from. I grew up in those neighborhoods. I moved out of it to get away and have a single family home. And that's what I'm trying to protect in our neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this tonight? Seeing none, I'm going to go to Mr. Gonzalez for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a residence AA zone half-acre property, currently improved with a single-family dwelling CO'd in 1988. This property was Lot 24 on the map of Captree Courts, Bohemia from 1986. The CNRs for that subdivision, specifically condition number 6, prohibited two-family or accessory apartments. Staff could not find the minutes for that board hearing to determine the origin behind the restriction. However, it should be noted that this predates the accessory apartment section of the town code, which was established in 1992. Under this section, applicants may apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for an accessory apartment and must meet various minimum criteria in regard to lot area, bedroom count, floor area, off-street parking, and other requirements. Staff could not find any other properties in this subdivision which applied or granted an accessory apartment, and that's for the two streets in this development, basically. For the owners, they purchased the property in February of 2023 and were unaware of the covenant. In June of that same year, a stop work order was issued for illegal conversion of the attached garage to the living area. The zoning division provided a write-up to the owners, and per the town attorney's office, the applicant may apply for a two-family, family use only special permit through the ZBA without the need for planning board approval. However, they wish to have no restrictions on the occupants of the apartment. Separate from the accessory apartment, this property is subject to a 30-foot natural buffer along Church Street, which sometime after 2021, according to aerial and street photography, was cleared and encroached in. The applicant has been provided with a replanting plan by the engineering division. At this time, staff opens it up to the board with any questions or comments.
Okay, well, do we have any questions from the board? Mr. Ferrajari?
Anna, do we have a plan of what the applicant is proposing as far as an accessory apartment, the size, just, square footage?
I do not have a copy of any floor plan that's been proposed, so I would defer to the applicant's representative.
It'd be nice to compare that plan to the town's accessory apartment ordinance to see if it's in compliance.
We do have an application submitted to the building department for the accessory apartment that does indicate the layout. It will consist of a kitchen, dining room, living room, bathroom, one bedroom. It does meet the square footage requirement. It does meet the lot width, the lot area. So in essence, it does meet all of the requirements for the accessory apartment ordinance, other than the fact that there is a covenant placed on this property. As Tanner stated, I was not able to find someone within this filed map that had received accessory apartment approval. But like he said, it's 2 blocks right next door, about 3 houses down. There is an accessory apartment approved. So in essence, it's not against the character nature of the neighborhood. There are other apartments that do exist here. And this covenant was placed prior to the town even adopting an accessory apartment code. As far as the restrictions on the occupants, right now they are looking to place their in-laws in the apartment. So it'd be their elderly in-laws. Initially, they were going to apply for the two-family family use. However, they have college-age children, and their in-laws come for certain times of the year, and they do want their children to be able to occupy the apartment. And with the two-family family use ordinance, it's based off of age or a health requirement where their children wouldn't meet that. So they wanted to make sure that they were able to use the apartment in the way that they intended.
All right. Well, children would still be family use. And all this board can do is lift number 6, which is the restriction, and you'd still have to go to zoning board for approval.
Yes.
I mean, we wouldn't be approving anything for accessory apartment. So that's what's before us tonight. If you stay to the parameters of family, which is children and in-laws, you could go directly to the zoning board and have that approved or disapproved by the board. You wouldn't have to
Unfortunately,
even be here tonight.
there is an age requirement or a matter of health, so the children do not have any health conditions that would meet that requirement. And the age requirement is anyone over the age of 70 and a half. So their children wouldn't meet it. We would need the condition to be lifted in order to have that, to proceed to the Board of Appeals. With our review of the plans and our application to the building department, we are certain that we meet the requirements for an accessory apartment before the board.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the board? Inez?
I have a question as far as also as part that the conversion of the garage is also being modified. Is that part of the first floor, the second floor, or the top floor?
It's on the first floor. They're doing a partial garage conversion to a den. It will still maintain the appearance of a garage in the front of the home because they are leaving space for storage. They're only taking half of the garage for a den.
Is there a basement?
No basement.
No basement. Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Moriarty?
I've got a question on this buffer as well. I guess there was an obligation to maintain at least a 30-foot buffer fronting on or touching on Church Street, and that has been, all vegetation's been removed. There's now a gazebo on it. I mean, that was obviously a prior owner, but how are we going to address that issue?
We have spoken with Tanner again as part of the engineering department. He has given us a replanting plan, and the gazebo will be removed and the vegetation will be replanted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Ferrajoli?
I would recommend that we get an actual plan from the applicant showing the floor plan of the apartment, showing the square footage, showing the off-site improvements, namely the restoration of the buffer, the accommodation for parking. So, I mean, the town's accessory apartment ordinance requires off-street parking. So, I think we should get some type of plan that shows that you're complying with it, and then planning can make a recommendation to this board.
I do have the plan that engineering provided us with for the revegetation. So we will be utilizing the plan that was supplied to us.
I would suggest you work with Tanner and
Yes,
getting all that.
he provided the plan. We will comply with his plan. As far as the off-street parking, we did have a driveway review done as well with the engineering department. The driveway was wide enough and big enough to accommodate the 4 parking stalls that are required. However, we were denied because they wanted us to replace a curb and an apron, which the property owner is willing to take out the DPW permit and make that repair as well. And we will also provide Tanner with a copy of the building permit application that includes the accessory apartment plan.
All right, any other questions from the board? We have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we close the hearing tonight and reserve decision pending the a plan from the applicant and planning's recommendation.
So we have a motion for Mr. Ferrajoli to reserve decision tonight,
I would second that.
pending a plan from the applicant and a second from Mr. Moriarty. All in favor?
Aye.
It's reserved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next application, Wahid Kostal, PB 2024-015, northwest corner of Main Street and Carlton Avenue, East Islip. Applicant requests a modification of planning special permit conditions with Town Code 4183 in order to modify the hours of operation. Do we have an applicant?
Ali Gavari, ARG Designs Consulting, 19 Farner Avenue, Southern New York, 11784.
Could you move the mic up? I'm sorry, I have a hard time hearing you.
Ali Gavari, ARG Design Consulting, 19 Foreigner Avenue, Selden, New York, 11784. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ali Gavari, representing Wade Corshall, ownership of Texas Chicken and Burgers located at 23 West Main Street in East Islip, 11730. We are here today kindly requesting a modification to the special permit granted to Boston Market in 1999 for hours of operations from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Texas Chicken and Burgers would like to operate business from 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. Monday through Thursday, and 10 a.m. through 4 a.m. Friday through Sunday. Texas Chicken and Burgers is a franchise fast food restaurant that currently has operated stores, around 50 stores operating throughout the East Coast and many others in different locations throughout the states. The franchise is looking, like many other stores, the franchise itself has been open for past midnight, and they utilize the third-party applications for delivery such as Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. They also have their own in-brand app for pickup. We feel that Texas Chicken and Burgers has been a great assistance to the local community, which they sponsor events and provide meals for organizations as requested. We believe these modifications will not create an impact on the neighboring properties, and we are kindly requesting these modifications be accepted.
Is there anything else you'd like to add at this point?
No, just open for any questions.
All right. I'm going to open it up to public testimony. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this? Seeing no one, we're going to go to Kelly Wozniak for a staff report.
Thank you. The property is located on the northwest corner of Montauk Highway and Carlton Avenue in East Islip, and it's improved with two multi-tenant retail buildings originally CO'd in 1954 and 1965. Over the years, the property has received several special permits from this board, and tonight the applicant is looking to modify the conditions of the special permit for a restaurant that was granted back in 1995. Conditions of that special permit limited the hours of operation from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and the applicant would like to modify the hours to allow the restaurant to operate from 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. Monday to Thursday, and then 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. Friday to Sunday. As standard practice, this board typically limits the hours of operation for restaurants, especially when adjacent to residential uses, to midnight. And other restaurants in the shopping center and the immediate surrounding area do not have late night hours of operation. Typically, there can be negative impacts to the residential uses with late night activities such as light and noise pollution, loitering, and illicit activities. This property does unfortunately have a deficient buffer, which is closest to the restaurant, which may pose an additional issue. The CVS does, however, operate 24 hours, and the restaurant does not serve alcohol or have any live music. Planning has prepared conditions should the board feel the impacts of the change in hours of operation will be minimal. However, the board will have to weigh the potential impacts for future uses in the immediate area, which may request similar hours.
Thank you, Ms. Wozniak. Do we have any questions from the board?
I mean, 4 a.m. seems like, that seems pretty late. Are all the other restaurants in the chain same type of hours?
So currently they have two other ones close by to here, which is in Center Reach and Selden. They're open to 4 a.m. The thing is that after 12 a.m., it's only pickup only and through the Uber Eats or Grubhub pickup.
So it won't be open for the public?
It's not open for public. It's just for pickup only, and you can order through the app. They have their own Texas Chicken and Burger app that they just order and they pick it up and they leave. So that's what they've been operating like that. Currently, right now, it's a brand new store, restaurant, so they really don't have that much traffic during those times, but they're looking to publicize it and put advertisement on windows to be open late, as McDonald's and Taco Bell down the block has been doing.
And how's the reception been in East Islip so far?
It's been great. They like it, so it hasn't been to the best of what they anticipated, but they're hoping maybe for this push and advertising that open late, that could generate more business for them.
Thanks.
Yeah, so requesting 3 AM or 4 AM, you're saying that's not to be open for business?
It's going to be open for business for pickup only. So people come in, if they order from home, when they're want a midnight snack, chicken, wings, whatever they need, they just pick up deliveries and have them picked up from a driver, third-party app, and then drop it off to the house.
All right, and to the best of my recollection, maybe Sean, you can shed light on, what, do we have any restaurants at all that are open past, I think the latest one is 1 AM?
Yeah, that's correct. In my research and my tenure, very long tenure in doing planning board special permits, we never went past 1 AM for a standard restaurant.
Right, and that's open for business. This is a little bit different, which I don't know that we have anything that would, that we have a precedent for this at all. Inez?
Is it considered a fast food or is it considered a restaurant?
Fast food.
It's considered a
It's just like
fast-
KFC, basically, Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's not really like a sit-in. People come in to take their food. Sometimes they choose to sit and eat. Other times they just take it and pick it up and go home.
Because if my issue is the late night, but if nobody's allowed to come, I mean, are people allowed to come in at 4 AM and sit and have something to eat? Or is it just, or can the marketing be done where you're telling everyone only through Uber Eats are we open
That's
until
what-
4 AM? Where nobody is going to show up at 4 AM to get a burger and fries. I don't know if that makes a difference
So
in this process.
ownership is open to having marketing done to say no seating acceptable, available after the certain amount of hours. And just only pick up only, meaning you could come in there, pick up your food, order your food, pick it up and take it out with you.
Because I also know that like in other fast food restaurants, I think McDonald's and you're not allowed in, right? They have like just for delivery or pickup for Uber Eats and
Yeah.
all of that. So I don't know if maybe there's some sort of language in that way where people already know you can't come in. You can only pick up via Uber Eats and other stuff.
Thank you, Inez. You know, this is something different that we've ever been asked. And I've been on the board 17 years. What I would like to do is to speak to the town attorney and see where this sits with, you know, our different precedents and everything. It's something that's a little bit different. Like McDonald's that we have, they're open to 2 AM. So I don't know that we have anything that serves food that's open, you know, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I do want to ask for the town attorney's opinion on that. What we could do is our next meeting is September 4th. So we could fast track this to bring back to the next meeting if there's other concerns with the board members. So, Mr. Ferrajari?
Yeah, my concern is the precedent that it would set for other food establishment places also seeking for, 4 AM hours. That I think is too late. I don't know if anything good happens after a certain hour a night. And I don't really see the distinction between opening and opening only for pickup. Because you still, whether I order on an app or I go up to the counter and order something, I'm going there and I'm ordering something and picking up my food and taking it out. There's just a blurred line there, very little distinction. So yeah, I think we have to be very concerned about the precedent that's set, and I like to, have an opinion from the town attorney's office and at least language drafted from the town attorneys.
Right, and just, I know that they loosened up on some of the laws and everything like that, but would alcohol be available to
No.
pick up?
Absolutely not. There's no alcohol. There's no music, loud music. Just food and
All right.
regular soda brand.
Okay, and last of all, I'd like to thank you for investing in our town.
Thank you.
And I'd like to take a motion from the board.
Sure.
Mr. Moriarty,
Thank you. I'd make a motion to close the public hearing and a reserved decision tonight to allow both the board, I guess, and staff, and then potentially town attorney's office just to look at the precedent issues and also take a look at some of the other restaurant approvals that we've approved over the years to give us a sense of whether these hours are reasonable.
I have a motion to reserve decision by Mr. Moriarty. Do I have a second? seconded by Mr. Khanna. All in favor?
Aye.
It's reserved.
Thank you.
We'll try to bring this back on September 4th.
Great. Thank you.
Next application is Whitestone Entertainment LLC, PB 2024-016, north side of Sunrise Highway, west side of Pennequot Avenue in Bay Shore. Applicant requests a planning board special permit for an indoor recreation use in the Business Street District pursuant to 68-302.1 for kids' play area establishment. Site plan modifications may also be requested as part of this application. Do we have an applicant?
Good evening. My name is Ilker Kasiktas. I'm from Whitestone Entertainment. This is for a special application for kids' play area. We're planning to open up an indoor playground in the South Shore Mall. We have around 10 locations right now. This will be first one in the Islip County. Yeah, that's about it.
We'll see if we have any questions from the public. I don't have any cards on this one either. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this? Seeing no one, I'm going to go to Ms. Wozniak.
Thank you. The application proposes a children's play area in one of the tenant spaces in the center of the South Shore Mall in Bay Shore. The previous tenant space was a furniture store, and this application proposes minor interior alterations to create a kids' playground area that will have things such as bikes for kids to ride, tunnels for kids to climb through, ball pits, slides, and things of that nature. The unit itself is approximately 6,400 square feet and consists of a small retail area, a play area, and a storage area. The use isn't expected to substantially increase traffic to the mall, as the unit is small and can only accommodate a certain number of children. Indoor recreations do require a parking determination, and it seems the mall has adequate parking to accommodate the use, as there are no known parking issues at the mall. So based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Wozniak. Is there any questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would make a motion to close the public hearing, grant the application subject to the approval, subject to the conditions, sorry.
I have a motion by Mr. Moriarty to grant the application. Do I have a second? Inez, seconded by Inez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's granted.
Thank you so much.
Next application, Jonathan Krugvlavla, the Central Islip Hop Hog Volunteer Ambulance, Inc., SP 2024-007, north side of Motor Parkway, 1,100 feet east of Blydenburg Road, Hop Hog. The planning board is requested to hold a Rochester hearing to hear the public testimony regarding the proposed construction of a new 26,657 square foot ambulance dispatch facility and a 1,876 square foot maintenance building, along with a special permit for a 110-foot tall communications tower. Site plan modifications and an exemption of the town zoning requirements for an ambulance use are also requested as part of this application. We have an applicant.
Good evening. Thank you all. My name is Jonathan Kricklava. I'm from the Central Islip Hop Hog Volunteer Ambulance, 4 Pineville Road, Central Islip, New York.
Jonathan, before you start, just let me for the record say that we've already had the public hearing, and tonight is a decision item from this board, so there would be no public testimony.
Perfect. So based off the last public hearing, we've been working very closely with Mr. Gonzalez, answering any questions that have been brought up to us by the board. We have provided all information to Mr. Gonzalez about said questions and any rebuttals, and we're here to answer any further.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez, I'm going to go to you for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application was last heard on June 5th, and decision was reserved to allow the applicant to submit post-hearing documentation for the following. First was whether alternative sites, including 471 Blydenburg Road, were suitable for the operation. Second being what the minimum height necessary for the proposed communications tower was based on the ambulance operation and their service needs. And lastly, the submission of documentation regarding the current operations and how they can no longer be accommodated at that site. So a supplemental report was received on July 24th, which provided adequate responses to these outstanding items. For the applicant team, 8 locations were researched, and the subject property was deemed the most efficient and practical based on building and site development requirements, along with the operational needs of the Central Islip Hauppauge ambulance facility. Specifically, it offers an advantage as the current facility on Pineville Road in Central Islip experiences communication issues within the northern section of Hauppauge, north of the proposed site location, which is at a much lower elevation than the Motor Parkway Ridge. This site is along this ridge, which is a high point within their response area and would eliminate that coverage issue. In regards to 471 Blydenburg specifically, for the applicant team, that site would not be appropriate for the proposed project, as locating antennas and radio equipment off-site from the ambulance building is not possible. If it were, it still adds a point of failure with the linking method between the ambulance building and the off-site communications location. Separate from those issues, there would be a high monthly cost to locate equipment and antennas on that tower. In regards to the 110-foot tower, which is generally in line with the industry standard for these type of facilities, this provides the adequate communication range and signal strength for the ambulance services needs. And lastly, the current ambulance facility deficiencies include the inability to expand the existing building and parking, existing bays not being sized to accommodate future apparatus, the mountain size of on-duty bunk area and training rooms being inadequate for current and future membership, storage areas being very limited, and no room for other dedicated space, which are standard in modern ambulance facilities. The draft planning board resolution before the board has been jointly created by staff and the town attorney's office and finds the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the 9-factor test of a Monroe decision. A similar template was used for the Brentwood Legion ambulance before this board recently. Staff recommends the board grant the application and accept this resolution, subject to final edit by the town attorney's office, which would be for minor administrative adjustments related to the establishment date of the ambulance district and the contract with the town.
Thank you, Tana. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Mr. Ferrajari.
I'll make a motion that we approve this application and accept the resolution drafted by the town attorney's office, subject to some minor tweaking from the town attorney's office.
We'll have a motion by Mr. Ferrajari to grant the application and bearing minor tweaks from the town attorney's office. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor? Aye. Aye. It's granted.
Thank you for your time.
King Associates Holding LLC, north side of Main Street, approximately 251 feet east of Macon Avenue, Sayville. Applicant requests a change of zone from Residence C to General Service T District, along with modifications of TC 5062 in order to construct an office building. This is another recommendation item.
Good evening again, all. Daniel Baker, Greenberg Traurig, on behalf of the applicant. Since we were last here, we have been in discussions with Mr. Colgan and staff as to the CNRs. I believe they have gotten to an acceptable position, and we're hoping that the board will recommend
Okay,
moving us on.
stand by in case we have a question. All right, do we have any, let me go to Sean for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board. This application was previously heard at the June 5th hearing. The primary concerns raised at that time were traffic, clearing of the property, and noise. The planning staff referred the application to Suffolk County DPW, which had no objection to the layout and the site access. The traffic study that was submitted by the applicant indicated that the traffic generation would not be significant. The site plan shows that the majority of the site will consist of vegetation, with more than half of that preserved existing mature vegetation, serving as significant buffers for adjacent residences. Also, it should be noted, as a concern for the clearing of the property. Much of it will be preserved. This coupled with no dumpster should significantly mitigate any noise generated from this proposed development. Given the transitional nature of this use and location, the relatively small size of the building, staff finds that the proposed change of zone meets the legislative intent of the General Service D District, and the staff recommends the attached covenants and restrictions for the board's review and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Colgan. Do we have any questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Moriarty.
I would make a motion to grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
I have a motion from Mr. Moriarty to grant the application subject to the attached CNRs. Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Cruz. All in favor?
Aye.
It's granted.
Thank you all again.
That being the last application tonight, do I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Moriarty. No seconds? Ms. Cruz, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Have a nice work.